Hey guys, how you doing? Hopefully you're doing okay. Going to give you a thorough overview of the article here. Perhaps I'll read through certain sections within it. There's a link in the description. I need to give you a trigger warning. This involves the murder and severe child abuse of a 2-year-old boy. His name, Athian Rivera, if I pronounce his name correctly, Athian Rivera, from Wyoming. The scumbag that you see here is the mother's boyfriend, Wyatt Dean Lamb. By the way, he had previously strangled the mother. So the mother didn't die, but he did commit an act of strangulation on the mother. And seemingly, she let him continue to live at the family home. Not the smartest thing. I shouldn't be too facetious because this is an absolute tragedy. 2-year-old Athian Rivera was not only murdered by this scumbag, but he was tortured as well. So I'll give you a trigger warning. We're going to go through the details. A 27-year-old man in Wyoming may spend the rest of his life behind bars for the murder of his former girlfriend's 2-year-old son. This happened last year, between February the 18th to February the 19th, 2021 is when the murder took place. Wyatt Dean Lamb on Wednesday pleaded guilty to 1 count of second-degree murder in regards to the death of 2-year-old Athian Rivera, his girlfriend's son. The scumbag's attorney reached a deal with special prosecutors overseeing the case. Under the terms of the agreement, prosecutors agreed to recommend that the scumbag serve between 45 and 60 years in prison. 45 and 60 years. Are we happy with that? It is a long time, but it's not life. It's not life. Why wouldn't it be life? I presume the death penalty isn't an option in Wyoming. Are we happy with 45 to 60 years? The reason why a plea deal has been offered is to secure a guilty plea. So there is a benefit in securing a guilty plea. We'll go back to the article. Athian Rivera, the 2-year-old's body, was found bruised and beaten. It was discovered wrapped in a sheet, a blanket, and 5 separate trash bags. His body was discarded in a dumpster of an apartment complex near the toddler's home. This piece of shit seemingly wrapped up Athian Rivera in a sheet, a blanket, put him in trash bags, took him to another apartment complex, swung him, chucked him, threw his dead, deceased, lifeless body into a dumpster. What a fucking disrespectful piece of shit. I'm glad he's pled guilty. I'm glad he's going to spend decades in jail. I'm glad the other inmates are going to have plenty of opportunity to have a nice little chat with this scumbag. Talk to him about how he treated Athian Rivera, his 2-year-old girlfriend's son. Ex-girlfriend. So, why did the scumbag kill 2-year-old Athian? Well, because he got angry. He got incredibly angry because Athian threw a piece of food. So what did the mother's boyfriend do? Well, the mother's boyfriend decided that he was going to try to make 2-year-old Athian pass out by holding his adult hand over the toddler's mouth, stopping him from breathing. He states that it was an accident. He only meant to make Athian pass out. He didn't mean to kill Athian. Whether that's true or not, and it's probably not, that is what you did, you piece of shit. And you're going to spend the rest of eternity in hell once your life has been taken away from you. And I hope that occurs in a very brutal fashion. The scumbag has been charged with 10 counts of child abuse due to the litany of horrific injuries that Athian sustained. We've got some details from a coroner's report. Athian suffered multiple abrasions and bruises on his head, back, chest, stomach, and arms. Athian's upper legs, groins, and genitals had been burned. 2-year-old Athian's upper legs, his groin, and his genitals had been burned. Apparently with a butane torch. You fucking evil, sick cunt. You piece of shit. 2-year-old boy. A baby. Beaten, suffered bruises all over his body. But you took a butane torch to him? You burnt him? You burnt him. You a fucking 2-year-old. A baby. You burnt a baby. You burnt a toddler. With a butane torch. This is it's just like incomprehensible. This is a fellow human like you, like me. This is a human. This is what humans are capable of. Like, these are very, very sick individuals. A butane torch. A coroner determined that Athian's cause of death was brain swelling, resulting from blunt force trauma, restriction of oxygen, or both. Blunt force trauma, restriction of oxygen, or both. So he was beaten, he was burned, and the scumbag has admitted to having holding his hand over Athian's mouth, which restricted oxygen and at least has partially resulted in Athian's death. In addition, the scumbag has pleaded no contest to one count of strangulation for a 2020 domestic violence incident involving Athian's mother, Cassandra Oriner. If I pronounce that correctly, Cassandra Oriner. I've got to say, and I don't wish to victim blame, of course, I've got to be very mindful that Cassandra Oriner has lost her 2-year-old child, Athian Rivera. I've got to be mindful of that. But at the same time, for fuck's sake, Cassandra, you dozy fucking bitch. Why the fuck did you stay in a relationship? Why did you continue to live with this sick cunt? He's already tried to strangle you. What else did you witness? What other acts of violence did you witness? Was that it? Just those 2 incidences? He's tried to strangle you. He tried to murder you, the mother. Was that it? No, it wasn't. Athian suffered multiple bruises. He was burned with a butane torch. The mother was aware that this guy is a psychotic piece of shit. The mother is to blame for continuing to live with that piece of shit. Is the mother to blame for the murder of Athian Rivera? No. She's not to blame for the murder. She did not commit the murder. I would hope and expect that the mother, Cassandra Oriner, does not condone the murder of her 2-year-old son, Athian Rivera, in any way, shape, or form. However, the mother, Cassandra Oriner, as much as she's a victim, as much as she's lost a cherished 2-year-old boy, she is to blame for continuing to live with a psychotic piece of shit that had already shown himself to be willing to be murderous. He strangled the mother back in 2020. You know, she survived, but she carried on living with him. Fucking moron. I don't want to victim blame. Victim blaming doesn't make sense in and of itself, but we've got to blame those that put children into danger. And Cassandra Oriner not only continued to put herself in danger, but she put Athian Rivera into danger. And it, has allowed for the murder to occur. She has to take some level of responsibility for that. Not necessarily in a legal capacity, but in a moral capacity. That's going to weigh heavily on her conscience for the rest of her life. Rightfully so. The scumbag murderer had a warrant out for his arrest due to the strangulation case, and he'd continued living at Cassandra Oroner's home when he killed Athian in February 2021. That's pretty much all we know. So seemingly he's filed a guilty plea. The prosecution have asked for between 45 to 60 years in jail. The judge will ultimately have the final say. So the judge may completely disregard the prosecution's recommendation. I would, personally. This is somebody who not only murdered he murdered a 2-year-old child. Life in prison, done. It's not complicated. But if you really want to be sure, he not only murdered a 2-year-old child, Athian Rivera, but he also subjected Athian Rivera to a severe beating, bruises all over his body, and burns. He burnt a child with a butane torch. What a fucking evil piece of shit. This is not someone who should ever have any level of opportunity to be granted parole to get out of jail. Yeah, he needs to be separated from society for the rest of his life. He needs life in prison. 40 to 65 years, or 45 to 60 years in prison. That's a long time, granted. That's a long time. But not long enough. Life in prison. Hopefully it won't be that long. Hopefully his other inmates will have plenty of opportunity to decrease his life expectancy in a very brutal fashion. I wonder if how difficult it is to smuggle some butane gas torches into the prisons in Wyoming. Let's hope it's not that difficult. Yeah? Maybe this guy would like to have his upper legs, his genitals burned. Maybe that's something the fellow inmates can give some thought to. Look, he's pleaded guilty. There's a blessing. That's a blessing. I am skeptical about plea deals, but they're not without benefit. This is a benefit. This has guaranteed a guilty verdict. It does guarantee that he will spend at least decades in jail. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. So I think the plea deals really let themselves down when the sentencing falls way short of what it ought to be. Now, I would argue that 45 years is not enough, but even though it's not enough, it still is a very long time. So I'm not too angry at the plea deal. But I am angry that this scumbag inflicted the harm that he did on Athian Rivera. And I am angry that the mother, Cassandra Oroner, continued to allow this piece of shit to live with him and Athian, even after he had exposed himself to being a violent psychopath. He'd already strangled the mother. You know, why is any woman or any partner allowing themselves to continue to maintain a relationship with somebody who has shown themselves to be so violent? There is one course of action to take. That is to pick up your bags, pick up your children, and get the fuck out of there. Easier said than done, sure, but life is difficult, you know? These are difficult situations. Life can be difficult. But there's support out there, especially for women, especially for mothers. I'd say in every state of the United States, I'm guessing, of course, but I would imagine that in every state, there's multiple facilities to house, to give at least temporary housing to women in danger, especially those with children. You know? She would have been given temporary housing. I don't know how things work in America or in each different states, but I would hope there'd be the opportunity to apply for permanent housing, if that's an option. But she would need to get out of there, you know, and she didn't. And for that reason, As much as I don't really want to victim blame, that's a mother who's lost her child. But she should have done better. She should have left and protected Athian and protected herself. I'm going to wrap things up here, guys. If I've done a half decent job, please do like, comment, subscribe, share the video, and take care.